We begin with the group back at where they'd fought the time creature, though it seemed that everything was normal from the outside. There really wasn't anything different, though Ben suggested they still check it out, and went to walk through one of the holes in the wall, disappearing as if he'd phased through something. This caused Gwen and Kevin to freak out a little, Gwen especially with everything that had been happening, and she'd run to try to find out what was going on while calling out his name. Ben phases his head out and tells the two they needed to come in and check this out. Doing so, they see the place was covered in snow and the DNA aliens were moving stuff around, though what specifically they weren't really sure. Ben says that it looks like the info from Riney was good after all and they'd stayed hidden looking around. Ben mentions there was supposed to be a kid here that could control alien tech and asked Gwen if she was able to sense anyone other than DNA aliens or hybrid, to which she began trying to do so, and after a moment she says she's got a lock on them and that they weren't far from where they were currently. Kevin tells Gwen to lead the way and they all begin to head off. They'd almost been spotted but managed to avoid detection when they went into a building where the kid was, with Gwen leading the way, still down a hallway. Ben tells them to wait before opening the door and changes into goop. Sliding under the door, he looks around and sees who the kid was, and that there was only 2 DNA aliens there. He sighed in annoyance, and slid back outside the door and looked annoyed as he says that it just had to be Cooper, sounding annoyed. This confused Kevin and Gwen since they hadn't met him before. Ben says that they should just get them and get out. Nodding, Kevin knocks down the door after absorbing the metal of it, and he and Goop take out the 2 guards that were there. Though Cooper looks scared and asks them not to hurt him, and that he'd build whatever they want. Though Goop smacked him upside the head and changed back into human form. Recognizing Ben, Cooper looked happy to see them, even though he'd just been smacked upside the head. Ben then introduces Kevin and Gwen to them and notices Cooper staring at Gwen and smacks him upside the head again, telling Cooper Gwen is his girlfriend, making Cooper apologize. They go to escape, trying to get clear without being noticed, though Cooper began talking about how Gwen reminded him of a princess in a game where she'd come to rescue him, and promptly got smacked upside the head again by Ben, telling him that now's not the time. They should be focusing on escaping, not his fantasy land. Kevin says that they should shut down the DNA alien's cloaking device, and Ben agrees since with it up they could work uninterrupted 24/7. Cooper says that he's got a prototype cloaking device that should be able to cover all of them if they squeeze together tight. But Ben refused this, as did Gwen. That Cooper kid kind of creeped her out the way he acted. Ben tells Gwen to get airborne but try to get high enough that they wouldn't take notice of her. Nodding, she then proceeds to fly off as Ben tells Kevin to get under the cloaking device with Cooper. He had his own way of sneaking around. Nodding, Kevin did so, and Cooper began to lead Kevin to the device, with Ben sneaking around to get to the device, with Gwen acting as an eye in the sky. Once they'd gotten to the device, the prototype fizzled out and the DNA aliens were about to swarm them, though Ben calls out to Kevin, telling him to grab the Varsidium and slam himself against it afterwards, to which he does, making a loud ringing sound that caused the DNA aliens to hold their heads in pain, being unable to attack. Cooper tells Kevin to keep it up as he focused on the cloaking device and began to make the device float and split apart as it dropped piece by piece until all of it was scattered. Ben then tells Gwen to smash it. She nods and uses a spell that creates a large and heavy energy object that drops onto the device, smashing it to bits. Cooper looks surprised by that and says, "Wow," to which Ben responds, "Remember that the next time you want to try to be creepy around her, with that stupid comparing her to some chick in your game." Cooper tries to say it's an MMO, but Ben smacks him upside the head again, shutting him up in the process. Once that was done, Ben called for the others to get back because things were about to get big. Way big. He then hit the Omnitrix, changing into his Toku Star transformation, and fired an energy blast at the DNA aliens, giving the others time to get to Kevin's car and get out. Though they tried to swarm Ben, it didn't do much good as he'd smacked them all around, and then blasted the arch, damaging it at the top, a massive deal. Once they were clear, Ben changed into Big Chill and flew underground, where the DNA aliens couldn't follow, and began to fly after Kevin's car, where he and the others were getting away from the battle, eventually catching up and flying off in front of him before changing back to human form. They pulled up to where Ben was just waving his thumb as if hitchhiking, and Gwen says, "Hey stranger, need a ride?" And Ben jokingly says, "Oh yeah, my ride's in the garage. Any chance you got room for one more?" Making them laugh, and Kevin tells him to get in. Ben says that they're going to get that thing fixed, and like it or not, they'd have to come back soon ready for a war, and asks Cooper if he'd be willing to help, though Cooper was staring at Gwen and gets smacked upside the head again, making him apologize and said that he'd be willing to help when the time comes.